Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to do a tier list for Jujutsu Kaisen Phantom Parade Recollection Bits, ranking majority of the SR and of course SSR ones. To explain the tiers real quick, SS are the best recollection bits in the game, S are the very good ones. In A we have some good and usable ones but definitely better options out there. In B we have the ones that you can definitely use until you get something better, and in C the worst ones in the game. Also, real quick, Jujutsu damage is essentially called for the global version as cursed technique damage or cursed damage, and then physical damage or physical technique is taijutsu damage. All recollection bits or memories in the game have two abilities: the activatable one, which you can actually improve and upgrade at limit break level 3, and the passive one in a way which you get access to at limit break level 1. Let's begin the tier list though with some SR recollection bits. I will place these three in the B tier. They all do similar things, so they are focused on healing and some damage reduction from the passive, and healing is not the best thing in the game currently, so I wouldn't value them too high. The free-to-play one we get at the start, of course, is the worst one of the three. Then, also in the B tier, the two Kugisaki recollection bits. This one is focused on Jujutsu damage. Not an amazing passive though. The other one is a bit better because with its passive it grants revival status, which is nice, and can also increase damage dealt in general, not a specific type of it. This one with the whole gang boosts taijutsu damage for 3 turns, which is nice, but its passive is not the best. I'm not the biggest fan of it because the more Tokyo Jujutsu High sorcerers you have in the team, the better this recollection bit becomes, and it limits team building a bit, so not great. Cracking the A tier is actually the free-to-play Yuji one, which is a supportive type. It can reduce damage received for all allies, which is actually nice, and grants revival status to the owner. So it is pretty decent, especially if we consider we get it early for completely free. Then we go to some damage boosting ones. The first one with Mai and Momo will be A tier, focuses on Jujutsu damage and decreases all enemies' damage dealt at the start of each wave, which can be useful if multiple waves are present. The one with the two sisters focuses on taijutsu damage and grants stealth to all allies for 2 turns at the start of the battle. This can be useful for main bosses for sure. The one with Sukuna and Mahito laughing, I would also place A tier. This one focuses on Jujutsu damage. Here the multipliers of boosting the specific type of damage are pretty similar between all of these, that's why they are closer to each other. This one though, when defeating an enemy, restores own cursed energy, so I will place it over the other damage boosting ones. The one with the shrine increases taijutsu damage received by the enemies for 2 turns at the start of each wave, which can be decent of course if you have a taijutsu main damage dealer, and increases own damage dealt for a specific amount for the character that holds it. It can be any type of damage, which is nice. The next SR one with one of Choso's brothers is at the top of A tier. It can really be helpful on supportive characters or characters that want to attract enemy attacks, like tanks. And that is because it increases all allies' damage and all types of damage as well for 2 turns, not for a high percentage, but it's still a decent boost. And then with the passive, when the holder HP drops under 50%, it recovers the cursed energy of that unit by 20, which can easily allow us to activate another skill to either gain damage reduction or something like that. It can help with survivability, it can mainly be attached on supportive units, and it can be nice for an SR one. And the final SR recollection bit is, in my opinion, incredibly good. This could even be an SSR recollection bit. That's how good I believe it is. I will definitely place it in the SS tier. I understand the multipliers could be better if it was SSR, right? But still, when an ultimate skill is activated, it increases all allies' damage dealt, which is awesome, and with its passive at the start of the battle, Phil's own ultimate skill goes by 200, allowing the character that it is attached to activate the ultimate faster, and of course provide a damage boost to everyone faster as well. Time for the SSR Recollection Bits. Let's begin with some free-to-play options. This one right here, where we can get from the missions, I will place in the A tier. It is essentially a better version of the healing / damage reduction options we saw as SR Recollection Bits. That's why I can also not put these higher, since this one is completely free to play and does the same job much better. The first event one I will place a bit over, but still closer to the bottom of A tier. It can help by increasing taijutsu damage, and the passive is not amazing. Damage reduction for 10%, not the worst. It can help with survivability, but not amazing either. This one can definitely be attached as a free to play option though on SSR Kugisaki. The next event one is definitely better, so at the moment I think it will go at the top of A tier, because the percentage of damage boosting is way better than the previous one, and it counts for damage dealt period after a command or ultimate skill, so not specifically taijutsu or jujutsu damage. The passive is not awesome because it once again has the 50% or below HP requirement, but other than that it can increase the cursed energy consumption efficiency for 3 turns, which can help quite significantly with us unleashing skills more freely. Next up we have the newest one that came with the Megumi event, probably the worst out of these free to play ones. I think it can be situationally good, but I will place it at the top of B tier. I do not like the fact that you're sacrificing your own HP to activate it. That is definitely a drawback. Yeah, in one hand you can place it on Gojo for example, because you know he cannot be hit, but for other characters it can definitely affect your run, and maybe even you are going to lose that character. So I'm not the biggest fan of the sacrificing HP, but with the passive skill it helps increase the own ultimate skill goes charge rate by 15% for 2 turns. Is that significant enough to justify the drawback? Maybe it is, under a specific situation. It can also be attached on the new incomplete domain SSR Megumi, but that is only if you do not have better options available to you. For the 2 newest SSR Recollection Gacha Bits, this one came out with Junpei. I will place it at the top of A tier. It can help with recovering own cursed energy every 4 turns if a command skill or ultimate skill is activated. The cursed energy regeneration is either 15 or 20 depending on limit break level, and that can be very helpful for activating more skills. And then for the passive, all enemies get increased jujutsu damage by 10% for the next 2 attacks that are jujutsu damage, obviously, and if these enemies are afflicted with poison, it goes up to 20%, but that is a niche thing for Junpei, which does make sense. It is his recollection bit, but overall it's not great. Not a lot of people can apply poison. And we are getting access to this passive at the start of the 6th turn. So if you are not going to the 6th turn in a quest, this passive will be completely useless to you, but you can still definitely make good use of the cursed energy regeneration. The SSR Recollection bit that came out in the Megumi banner is definitely much better, definitely in the double S tier. First of all, it can help not only fill own ultimate skill goes by 200 every 5 turns if a command skill or ultimate skill is activated, but alongside that recover own HP for the character that it is attached to. And then the passive at the start of the 4th turn, definitely more manageable, increases all allies damage dealt by 25% for 3 turns, which is insanely good, especially coming from the passive ability. You don't need to activate anything or fulfill specific requirements. Such a great bit if you do manage to get it. The next recollection bit, the one with Megumi in school and his sister, is pretty similar to the one from the Junpei banner. It can either be a bit worse or a bit better depending on the situation. That's why I want to place these two together. The passive is completely different because this one just reduces damage received by 10%, but the activation skill is extremely similar. The difference is that this one provides you with less cursed energy recovery. So instead of 15 and 20, it is 10 and 15 in the two different limit break levels, but it also helps recover own HP. And the cooldown for activation is not 4 turns, it is 6 because of that extra HP recovery. So depending on what you need, you might find the one better than the other. Then I think this is the worst recollection bit, definitely for the SSR rarity. And the main reason is that it gives you 6 turns, because at the start of the 6th turn with the passive, it increases all allies' cursed energy consumption efficiency for 3 turns. Makes it harder to activate skills. If you cannot clear the quest in 6 turns, it then becomes a disadvantage, which is not really worth taking. If you know you can clear before the 6th turn, I guess it is fine, and overall it is okay to use early on, but it's not a recollection bit I would heavily invest into, that is for sure. Then we have a pretty decent one for tanks, but it only helps with decreasing the damage received on the specific character and also grants taunt status to that character. If it is a tank, this can help, so you can tank more damage and the other characters can of course freely activate skills and attack and also be safe. I will place it at the top of B tier, but does not help with any damage boosting at all. The next recollection bit with the first special grade curse, I will place right here, closer to the bottom of B tier. I'm definitely not the biggest fan of this one because I think in a lot of situations it can have a completely worthless passive, since it decreases own Jujutsu damage received for 3 turns. If the enemy has any other type of damage, it does not help you whatsoever. It focuses on increasing taijutsu damage. There are simply much better options to prefer even at the SR rarity. One spot over, I will place the SSR Nanami one. This is not the best either, it focuses a lot around critical hit rate, so it is a requirement for your character to have it, otherwise there is no point in using this recollection bit. Characters like Yuji and of course Nanami do use critical hit rate for their SSR versions, but even then I think there are better options out there to simply boost their damage, not just their critical hit rate. And its passive also starts at the 6th turn, boosting both types of damage, so it is made for SSR Nanami, that is obvious. And just like the character, the recollection bit takes a while to get the full capacity of damage out of, because the passive starts at the 6th turn, boosting your damage. Moving on to the Hollow Purple recollection bit, this is the best SSR recollection bit for Jujutsu damage, so definitely double S tier. 80 and 85% of a boost when the ultimate skill is activated, so an amazing combination with Gojo. Now have in mind, if you perhaps want to use a character that deals Jujutsu damage, but you want to have something boosted without using the ultimate as a requirement, you might prefer something different, but overall for damage output this is extremely good. And we have to take into account the passive as well, where at the start of each wave it feels the ultimate skill goes by 200, which can be extremely good, especially in content with multiple waves, to activate the ultimate faster. The next is definitely also a very good recollection bit with Yuji and Todo. I will place it at the top of S tier. It's not double S for a couple of reasons in my opinion. First of all, it is awesome for taijutsu damage. The thing is, there is a condition in the activation effect that requires 50% HP or below to increase the damage further. To get all of its capabilities and the maximum boosting, you need to fulfill a requirement, which is not ideal, but at the same time the numbers, even without the requirement, are still very good to ignore. And the passive is also extremely good because at the start of the battle it grants revival status to the character that is holding this recollection bit, which is definitely awesome. The next one I will place at the bottom of S tier. It is more of a survivability focused one. When a command skill or ultimate is activated, recovers all ally HP by 30 or 35%, which can definitely be very useful, but at the same time situational. And the passive is also pretty decent, where at the start of the battle decreases all allies' damage received by 10% for 4 turns. If you are at a stage where you want to stall and multiple waves are present, it might not be as useful, maybe the healing, the passive not so much, so I won't put it higher, but at the same time, as far as healing goes, one of the best recollection bits in the game. Next, we have another supporting one, because when a command skill is activated, Phil's own ultimate skill goes by 260 or 360 respectively at limit break level 3. This is another S tier recollection bit for sure, but the passive is not the best because it is very situational. At the start of each wave decreases own taijutsu damage received for 3 turns. It can find its uses, sure, but you want to use this recollection bit with characters that are ultimate hungry and not damage dealers, because for damage dealers you want them to have a recollection bit to increase damage. You are going to use this for supportive characters, utility characters, debuffers for the enemy or buffers for the team, even to perhaps protect the team. These types of characters, like Yaga for example, can find great use for this. Next up, we have a double S tier recollection bit, probably the best or one of the best for taijutsu damage characters. Like the Hollow Purple Gojo one is the best for Jujutsu damage, this is one of the best for taijutsu damage. Either 80 or 85% of a boost, and then with the passive, when a critical hit is performed, Phil's own ultimate skill goes by 200. Great for Kugisaki for example, or SSR Yuji, but I don't think I can place it over the Hollow Purple one, simply because of the passive. It actually has a requirement, and it's not just at the start of every wave. So I will place it behind, but it is still a great recollection bit to own. The next one is a utility focused one. I will place it at the bottom of A tier. It has some disadvantages that keep it there in my opinion. So first of all, when a command skill or ultimate skill is activated, recovers cursed energy of the user by either 15 or 20, and then the passive, if the HP is 40% or below, decreases damage received by 50% for 2 turns. Now, the damage reduction is great at 50%, but 40% HP or lower can be an annoying requirement to fulfill. And on top of that, I think the cooldown for its activation, being 8 turns, is kind of high, so not the best recollection bit, but I guess it can still find some uses. For the next recollection bit, I will be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I will place it at B tier. When a command skill is activated, grants taunt to self for 2 turns. It can be useful for tanks. The cooldown is the only thing that gets reduced when we get it at limit break 3, nothing else changes, which I don't like because it's probably not worth the investment. And the cooldown reduction is only for 1 turn, from 6 to 5. And then the passive has a requirement of you hitting a critical hit. If that happens, decreases all allies' damage received by 12%, which is good, but only for 1 turn. So yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of this one, even though it can still be situationally good. The Jogo one is up next. I will place it, I think, in the double S tier. It is definitely one of the best Jujutsu damage boosting ones. It allows, with any command skill or ultimate, to boost own Jujutsu damage by 55 or 60% for 2 attacks, which can definitely be extremely good. And if you manage to fulfill the requirement of 50% HP or below, it increases damage dealt by 30% for 3 turns, which is awesome, hence why it is locked behind the requirement. I think I will place it in the double S tier, even though I did consider S tier for this. The next one will be taijutsu focused, and it will be S tier, with Sukuna and Gojo fighting from the start of the anime. I will actually place this behind the 2 other taijutsu damage ones for a couple of reasons. So behind Yuji Todo and behind of course the Maki one that is at the top, because of its worse percentage of boosting. It is by 60 and 65%, and it is for 2 turns though, which can be very useful. It depends on what you need in a quest. Do you need one nuking ability, or do you need more continuous damage over 2 different turns? And then its passive ability If the HP is 50% or below, grants evasion status to self, which is not an amazing passive. It can help for your damage dealer to survive, but I think some of the other passives can be more useful, hence why I am not going to place it higher. The next one is a utility based one, and it is definitely awesome. I will place it in the double S tier. When a command skill or ultimate skill is activated, increases all allies' ultimate skill goes charge rate by 30 or 35% for 2 turns. And that can be huge help for you to activate your ultimate skills in time or maybe even multiple times during a quest. If the enemy is in break status from the passive ability, it feels own ultimate skill goes by 200, so for the character that it is attached to, which is also very nice. Generally, the recollection bits that help with ultimate skill goes charge rate or charging in general can be very valuable on supportive characters, because that's what you are planning to do with your team anyway, to get their ultimate off as soon as possible. That's why this one is in the double S tier. Next up we have a damage focused one. It will be in the A tier. It is more suited for characters that have combined damage, so both taijutsu and jujutsu, because when a command skill or ultimate skill is activated, it can increase taijutsu and jujutsu damage by either 28 or 33%. When the ultimate skill goes of the character attached to this is max, then more taijutsu and jujutsu boosting is coming for 2 times, and this is good, but I just think because the multipliers are not the best, if your character is not doing combined damage, you definitely want to prefer better options. And even if your character is doing, you might find better multipliers with other recollection bits and maybe even better passive skills. But it is without a doubt a usable one. Next we have another damage boosting one. I will place it in the double S tier at the bottom. I think this can actually be very nice for you to have because of its versatility. It increases own damage dealt, not specific type of damage, by 70 or 75% based on level, and that can be definitely very good. The passive skill is not amazing, not a strong suit of this recollection bit, because when a critical hit is performed, increases all allies' critical hit rate by 10% for 2 turns. But we cannot ignore the very good multipliers and the versatility with both types of damage combined in its boosting. The next one is similar to the Sukuna and Gojo one, but for Jujutsu damage, 60 and 65% of a boost for 2 turns, and with its passive skill it will just grant you 10 cursed energy at the start of the quest. And that can of course help you activate some skills sooner. It's not the best thing in the world, that's why I cannot place it higher. Next up we have a similar recollection bit to the Panda one we saw earlier with combined type damage boosting, so both taijutsu and jujutsu, but with better multipliers for 3 turns, and with the passive it increases own damage dealt by 20%. It has the requirement the more Tokyo Jujutsu High students you have, the more damage you do, so I cannot place it higher than A. It's not the best, but it is definitely over the Panda one because of the better multipliers. The next recollection bit is a utility one. If you are using a command skill, it decreases all allies' damage received by 30 or 35%, which can be pretty valuable, but I think the passive is even more valuable because at the start of the battle it recovers all allies' cursed energy by 10. The all allies part is definitely important, and I will place this in the S tier, I think over the healing one we saw before. And for the final recollection bit where the characters are fighting Hanami, I will place it in the A tier. It increases damage for both types actually by 40 or 45% for 2 turns when a command skill or ultimate skill is used. Only for the character of course that it is attached to, and if the HP is 50% or below, then even more damage. That is of course a condition need to be met. And if the HP is 50% or below at the start of the turn, fills the character's ultimate skill goes by 1000, which can be extremely useful, but hidden again behind the HP requirement. And with this one we complete the tier list. What do you think of it? tell me down below based on your experience in the game. Maybe I overrated or underrated a specific recollection bit. Let me know as to why, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, I would really appreciate it. For the updated character tier list video, you can click the video on the left, and for more JJK Phantom Parade content, make sure to subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.